Hi everybody. How is everyone? Somber feeling, I'm sure. Some still in shock, maybe. I took a couple days and reflect and watch news clippings and read a bunch of articles, and I've reflected, and I want to come out and voice some of my opinions, and I have some strong ones on this. The events at the Capitol were heart-wrenching. Many of you know that for the last number of years I've been advocating with my heart out at our state capitol here in Pennsylvania. I advocated at the state capitol in New York. I went to Rome advocating. I have led protests. I led a protest in Harrisburg, a march. We went from City Island, across the river, through the streets of downtown, right up the Capitol stairs and in the front door. Hundreds of us. And I led it. I was there. It was my job to get that march from City Island to the Capitol stairs and get them riled up on the way. And I succeeded. By the time we got to those Capitol doors, we were pissed off. Pissed off. And we had good reason to be, too. We had good reason to be. The Republican leadership in the Senate was continuously blocking us over these big constitutional reasons. They're such constitutionalists, such constitutionalists. Not today, they don't seem to be. That day that I led that group into the Capitol, before we got to the Capitol, before we started out, everybody in my group knew what we could and what we couldn't do as soon as we hit those Capitol doors. I was clear to everybody. And the Capitol Police would be the first people that we would meet inside the door. Every single one of us would have to go through the metal detectors and clear security. No megaphones. I said, we have no problem with the Capitol Police. They're standing their watch. They're there to make sure we are safe. We are going to go in, we are going to go through the metal detectors, we are going to be respectful to the Capitol Police, and then we are going to go and we are going to hold our protest on the Rotunda steps. And that's what we did. I was on our House and Senate floor at the state Capitol one time each. A few years ago, Representative Mark Rossi and I were in his office late at night one night. We had gotten our ass kicked legislatively, and we were licking our wounds up in his office. He asked if I had ever been to the floor, and I said no. And he said, "Oh, come on down. Let's walk down." And he had to get permission from the guard to bring me on. This was a big deal. You know, nobody was there. It was out of session, but he had to get permission, and he's a sitting representative. But we walked on. That room is unbelievable. The history, unbelievable. The front, where the Speaker of the House sits, he made it clear to me I was not allowed up there. Even though they weren't there, nobody is allowed up there. I was not allowed near the Speaker's dais, not anywhere near it. A veteran, a friend of Representative Mark Rossi, somebody who respects this whole process, I would never, ever imagine ignoring him and walking up onto that dais and sitting in that chair. Never. What we saw the other day at the Capitol with that crusty ass white privileged. That's what it was. If you do not know what privilege is or what white privilege looks like, ladies and gentlemen, that's what it looks like. For those of you that don't know, that is privilege. That person thought that they were so privileged that they could kick in the doors of the Capitol, the United States Capitol, bust through the guards, bust through the glass, run them out, and walk up and sit his crusty ass in the Speaker's chair. Don't look at that as Nancy Pelosi's chair. She is the current occupant of that chair. That is the Speaker of the House chair. So many laws and bills have been passed and crossed by that table. And this ignorant bastard who has no clue about any of that, he just sits down. That's white privilege. I'm a veteran. Let me tell you something. I was a deck seaman in the Navy. Deck seaman. I worked with the bosun mates. The toughest bastards on the boat, bosun mates. They don't take shit from nobody. Solid. That Navy ship, a Navy ship won't go anywhere without bosun mates. No one screws with the bosun mates on the ship. My direct supervisor in the Navy, my third class petty officer, is a black man from Detroit. Rock City, he always said. My second class petty officer is a black man from Alabama. I guarantee he's going to watch the Alabama game tonight. My first class petty officer, I can't remember where BM1 Wright was from. But he's a black man. BM3 Ford, BM2 Whitehead, and BM1 Wright. Three of the most solid men I've ever met in my life. Taught me respect, toughened me up, served longer than I did. All had higher ranks, all had longer terms in the Navy. There is no way in hell that any one of those three black men would have made it to that chair without getting shot. If we would have busted into the Capitol together, I'm fairly convinced that I'd have made it to the chair, but I'm fully convinced that they wouldn't have. And that's what this fight's about. These are historic times, ladies and gentlemen, historic. We have never faced something like this in my lifetime. I'm 50 years old. Now's the time for real men of honor, ethics. Stand up. Call out what this is. Call this injustice out. A Capitol police officer had his head smashed in with a fire hydrant. I went to Black Lives protests. I went to End Racism Now protests when I was running for office. Police officers were there to make sure we were safe, and I went around to every one of the police officers and thanked them for their watch, doing their job. I respect police. I've met with Chief of Police for Johnstown. No one's going to tell me I don't respect police. If you're on here and you said you respect police earlier, you got to come up and say you respect it now. That was an insertion. We need to come together. We need to do better. I worry about this district. I worry that our local congressman, our local representative, our local state senator are all still carrying water, calling this a fake election, has no integrity. This is an historic moment, man. Feds are looking into this. The state attorney general's looking into this. National news is going to be all over this. When Pennsylvania politics get started and their committees start and they investigate voter integrity, I worry that southwestern Pennsylvania is going to be labeled Trump Country USA. That's going to be really difficult for economic redevelopment. If you don't believe me, look at what those companies are doing. They're out now saying they're not donating to these Republican candidates that are backing Trump. Well, if they're not donating to them, you think they're going to move their company here? I'm sorry that this one went on longer, but these are historic times. I really appreciate you listening. We got to do better. We got to step up and speak out and call it like it is. We gotta call it like it is. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.